You've probably heard all the hype around the Eluktronics MAG-15. I've got the Australian version of that here, the Vapor 15 Pro from Aftershock, which uses the same Intel design chassis. So let's find out how well it performs in 20 games at all setting levels, and compare it against other laptops to see the differences. For the specs, there's an Intel i7-9750H CPU, NVIDIA RTX 2070 Max-Q graphics, 16GB of memory and dual channel, and a 144Hz 1080p screen. It's also available with GTX 1660 Ti, which I've tested in the past. Otherwise, you can find updated prices to both configurations linked in the description. The Control Center software allows us to swap between different power settings. I've tested with performance mode for best performance and higher fan speed. By default, the i7-9750H CPU was also undervolted by -0.05 volts, which should help out a bit too. We'll only be covering gaming performance in this video. I'll compare game performance, thermals, and more with the 1660 Ti model in a future video. Let's start out by going through all 20 games at all setting levels, then afterwards we'll see how this configuration of the Vapor 15 compares with some other laptops. Control was tested walking through the start of the game, and I've got RTX on shown by the green bars and RTX off in the purple bars. It was playing okay at higher settings, just under a 60 FPS average. And although RTX on does look nice in this game, we can see it reduces the performance quite a bit. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode, and it was playing just fine at ultra settings with RTX off. To get above 60 FPS with RTX on, however, medium settings were needed, but I'd rather stick to ultra with RTX off, as to me it looks and runs better anyway. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark, and at higher settings, these results are pretty much right in line with other 2070 Max-Q laptops. We'll compare this game with some other laptops soon. Borderlands 3 was tested with the built-in benchmark and DX11, as 12 is still in beta. In this test, ultra settings was able to hit a 60 FPS average, though we could get near 100 and above with medium settings. Apex Legends was tested with either all settings at maximum or all settings at the lowest possible values, as it doesn't have predefined setting presets. It was sitting on the 144 FPS frame cap at minimum, and wasn't that far behind even maxed out, where it was still playing very well. Ghost Recon Breakpoint was tested with the game's built-in benchmark, and even maxed out at ultimate settings was still reaching above 60 FPS in this test, with 100 hit at medium and below. Far Cry New Dawn was also tested with the built-in benchmark, although the results weren't too much better compared to other laptops with lower specs. I guess the game, or at least this test, just has diminishing returns with more GPU power. F1 2019 was also tested with the game's built-in benchmark. There wasn't much of a difference to the results with ultra-low to high settings, at least when compared to ultra-high, which took a larger step back. However, it was still providing decent results. Fortnite was tested with the replay feature in the new Chapter 2 map. Even maxed out at epic settings, the 1% low was around 100 FPS, with 120 for the average, so absolutely no issues with this one at all. Overwatch is another game that runs well on pretty much any modern hardware. Even at epic settings, the 1% low is around the refresh rate of the screen, so it was running great and felt super smooth. CSGO was tested using the Eluktronics FPS benchmark, and as a game that depends primarily on CPU power, the results are a little better than most other i7 laptops, likely due to that small default undervolt. Dota 2 was tested playing in the middle lane, and as a primarily CPU-driven game, the results were good but not really much different compared to a machine with lower GPU. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark. At max settings, almost 150 FPS averages were possible in this test. Great results that are higher than the refresh rate of the screen, with above 200 FPS at low. Metro Exodus was tested using the built-in benchmark. Most parts of the game perform a fair bit better than this, so don't take these results as a good indication of what to expect throughout the entire game. It's more of a worst case. The Division 2 was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and above 70 FPS averages were possible with the highest ultra setting preset, though we could about double this with low settings. PUBG was tested using the replay feature, and the highest ultra setting preset was able to average above 100 FPS, so another with no issues and decent levels of performance. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was tested with the built-in benchmark, and as a CPU-heavy test, we're not really seeing that much of a difference compared to other laptops with lower graphics. Watch Dogs 2 is a resource-heavy game, but given I can play it with a stable 30 FPS, hitting almost 60 at Ultra was very playable without issue. The Witcher 3 also played fine even with the ultra setting preset. I don't think the game really needs a high frame rate to play, but we should still reach above 100 FPS even with high settings. Strange Brigade was tested just so we've got a Vulcan title in the mix. The built-in benchmark tool was just able to score an average frame rate above the screen's refresh rate even with high settings, with well over 200 seen at low settings. Let's also take a look at how this config of Aftershock's Vapor 15 with the RTX 2070 Max-Q compares with other laptops. Use these results as a rough guide only, as they were tested at different times with different drivers. In Battlefield 5, I've got the Vapor 15 highlighted in red near similarly spec'd machines. The results were a little below the other 2070 Max-Q machines I've recently tested, but that's likely as the power limit here appears to be capped at 80 watts. Granted, it never hit this anyway, as the GPU is set to throttle at 75 degrees. These are the results from Shadow of the Tomb Raider with the built-in benchmark at highest settings. This time the Vapor 15 was right in line with most other 2070 Max-Q machines tested, and it was scoring 16% higher average FPS over the 1660 Ti version. In Far Cry 5 at ultra settings, it was now doing quite well. This is more of a CPU-driven test, so it's likely a result of the default undervolt on the CPU. The Vapor 15 was now slightly ahead of the Aero 15 and Y740 with same graphics, or 9% faster than the 1660 Ti config. Overall, the performance from the Vapor 15 was quite good. For the most part, it's in line with other RTX 2070 Max-Q laptops I've tested. In some GPU-heavy games, it's a little behind due to the 75-degree cap, while in some CPU-heavier games, it's doing better thanks to the undervolted CPU. So far, the RTX 2070 Max-Q doesn't appear to be too much faster than the 1660 Ti config I've previously tested, but I'll compare these two in way more depth in a future video, so if you're new to the channel, consider getting subscribed for that comparison as well as future tech videos like this one.